Hello and welcome back to another podcast here in the Ramm's Den with myself, David Rams, and Lawrence Anton back in the house.
Oi, oi.
Oi, 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 oi. Right, today we're talking about comedy. We're talking about, well, the title is, Are We Losing Humour to Offence Culture? Which, I mean, I think that's a quick answer. We're not losing it, but obviously there are people in this kind of offence culture that are trying to take it out, right? So today we're going to talk about a couple things. I'll tell you a couple things I want to talk about, Lawrence, that you could tell us a couple of things you're interested in talking about. So for me, I want to talk about some obviously some famous people, Ricky Gervais, Dave Chappelle, and in specific context. So what exactly makes comedy offensive? Who gets to decide what's offensive? Why should comedians only punch up and never punch down? And what is comedy exactly? And what's the point of it? And that's pretty... Oh, yeah. And what can people do on either side of the coin? So let's say people who don't want comedy to go away, what can they do? And people that do want comedy to go away, what can they do? And that's what I had as an idea of kind of like to bring it all home. What do you think, man?
I got two things. The first one is, and I don't know if we're going to solve this in this one podcast.
Okay.
But I want to see if we can at least figure out, is there anything that shouldn't be joked about in any context?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because I think there are certain things that, you know, it would be the decent thing to do not to joke about in certain contexts, i.e. you go into, you know, like the kids' hospital wing, you know, there's certain jokes you don't want to tell when you're in that hospital wing, right?
Right.
But in another
Maybe.
context, like in a Ricky Gervais stand-up show, you know, he did the baldy joke,
Right.
right? Super funny, completely different context.
Yeah.
Everyone gets he actually doesn't mean it. But if he actually went in, you know, and did that joke,
And
I mean, maybe some of the kids, you know, would have a sense
Right.
of humor. Who knows?
And he called...
You know,
Wait,
'cause
so
it's-
to be specific, Ricky Gervais made a joke about terminally ill children and made some little like jokes about, you know, Baldy and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He used the word Baldy, but it's obviously way out of context. If I'm just saying it here, it sounds absolutely horrible. But it was a joke, right? It was part of a joke. And then I think the part of the joke we can tell at the moment that's pretty easy to just repeat is where he said they contact him for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and he says, oh, so he likes to do it, but he said he always tells them, you wish for me? Really? Me? Rick, why would you want me? Why'd you not wish to get better? He's like, you know, so that's... And he did it a lot, obviously a lot more funny than that. But yeah, for sure. If you went into the ward and went like, oh, Ricky Gervais, I've always wanted to meet you. I'm a big fan of your voiceover work. Because, you know, these people are young, right? They don't know his comedy maybe. And he comes in and goes, all right, Baldy, why'd you not wish to get better? Maybe it's not going to go down quite as well as a stand-up event, right? So I get what you're saying.
So that's the first thing is I want to see if we can, or if either of us, maybe we can just share our opinions. Do either of us think that there are certain things that just, you know, there's no context where we see it as like an okay thing to joke about?
Okay.
The second thing is I thought it would be interesting to talk about like how offense culture changes, because I don't necessarily think it's a new thing. I just think it's got a certain form at the moment.
Right.
So if you remember when we were growing up, maybe less so in the UK, but if we look at America, it was very much that the conservative religious right were the sort of offense culture, right? And they were trying to get stuff cancelled. And you have comedians like Monty Python actively trying to piss those people off with things like Monty Python, Life of Brian, and other, you know, and they obviously it wasn't just aimed at them; they were also taking aim at other groups as well. So I thought it was interesting how like offense culture, it changes, and at the moment it takes more of a like progressive sort of, you know, I guess let's just leave it a progressive sort of tinge to it at the moment. Yeah.
I guess so. Where to start then? I mean, I guess we'll just kind of go from what you were saying there. I mean, I think the reason that maybe it's progressives trying to shut it down is because it's mostly progressives that are getting it in the neck, right? It's progressive ideals and progressive movements that are getting quite a lot of heat from comedians. You very rarely see comedians going after Christians anymore. And the reason is it's kind of, I mean, what is there to go after? I mean, obviously you can make fun of the Christian extremists, And I've seen a couple of jokes about the Planned Parenthood and stuff like that, but that's not even directly at Christians. That's just more about general conservatives. So it's not really, they're not really, they don't really have that many extremely passionate things. And obviously, if you're going to joke about Jesus, I mean, that's just been done to death, I think. I think it's hack to make jokes about Jesus. So I guess there's not really much left for them to go at. Whereas with the progressives, it feels like they come up with some new madness every day. And this is speaking as, I mean, you agree with me here, and we are both people that are speaking from that side of the spectrum. Like I was saying in another stream the other day, most right-wingers and even centrists will place both you and me on the progressive side of the political spectrum. But even we can look at the other people on our side and say, every 2 minutes they're coming up with some wacky shit, and it is never ending. And then the comedians, and then for some reason it blows up, it goes all the media and everyone hears about it. And then what do the comedians talk about? Well, they talk about whatever's blowing up in the media because that's what everybody's talking about. And it tends to be progressive nonsense that is blowing up all the time. And there's a lot of it. So maybe it's just down to the culture shifting and who's doing the most ridiculous stuff. It used to be the Christians doing insane, the ridiculous stuff, and the other religious people, like religious fundamentalists. Now it's the progressives doing the ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like the way that offense, or like the way that comedy and where it takes aims changes. I guess it depends on a few things, right? Like you already said, a lot of the stuff has been done to death, right? So we've gone through a period of taking the piss out of, at least Christian religious conservatives. It's kind of been done to death. Everyone knows the jokes. And now, but also like cultural, or like conservative Christians had much more of an influence in the culture back then. The even though the culture isn't, like 100% dictated by progressives, there's at least this veneer of progressivism on top of everything. It's in loads of the companies, it's in a lot of the institutions, and a lot of people feel that they can't say certain things because of progressive backlash, whereas in the past it was more religious backlash, right? And so often comedians, at least the ones that, people really like, they're often countercultural and take the piss out of what you were saying before about like essentially punching up the people who hold cultural power.
Right.
And so you have, back in the day, you have people like George Carlin, really famous for taking the piss out of religion and Christians. Whereas now, a lot of the sort of well-known comedians, they may not have established themselves on this. Like Ricky Gervais Ricky Gervais is an interesting example because he's actually evolved with the times.
True.
Because if you look at his earlier stuff, he actually did a lot more religious stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, he had a whole bit going through the Bible and going through a book about Noah's Ark, I think.
Yeah,
it was, right?
that was a really good bit.
Yeah, exactly. But he's changed his comedy so that he aims at different groups, but he has continuity in the fact that the group he aims at is pretty much usually the group that holds sort of cultural power in terms of being able to get people silenced or make people feel like they can't say certain things.
Well, and this,
so he's a really good example.
You nailed a good point there. I wrote this down actually when I was thinking about what my points on this, and you got to actually think about. Okay, who were the original comedians? I'm talking historically. What were comedians historically?
Weren't they the court jester or something?
Exactly.
They would take the piss at the king or something.
Exactly. And what were the court jesters doing? And also the bards, right? They were playing comedy music. What were they singing about? What were they making jokes about?
It was usually the people in authority, like the king, the royal. What I might be getting it wrong.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. That's what I understand. What I understand is some of them got executed for it too. Like the thing is, what they were doing. Obviously, some kings and some powerful people were up for it and like, yeah, okay, whatever. But a lot of them weren't. And what from my understanding, the reason people found it funny, it's not just because they're making quips and using some wordplay and stuff, but it's also because, and mostly because, everybody knows you're not supposed to. That you're not allowed to say that. So when these people come along and they not only say it, but they frame it with the jokey comedy and they take the mick out of it. So they're not just saying, hey, it's wrong how the king treats us and we should, you people are worth more or whatever. It's not that. It is that, but it's dressed up as comedy. right? Or sometimes it's not even that. It's just literally taking the mick out of the king because you know you're not supposed to. So when you consider the origins of what we find funny and why we find it funny, obviously it's shock, it's subverting expectations, it's a wordplay, it's all these different things. But yeah, a huge chunk of what we find funny is when someone comes out and doesn't just say the things we're not supposed to say or criticize the people we're not supposed to criticize, but they make fun of it. They make light of it. They make light of the severity and the seriousness of it all. And that's why people laugh because yeah, they're like, oh my God, you can't say that. That's hilarious. Or I'm so shocked. Maybe they don't even laugh sometimes. They just sit there in shock, but they love it. And so that's what Ricky Gervais has been doing with religion, and then now more recently with talking about kids in the bloody cancer ward, or with all the trans stuff, or I mean, there's tons of topics he's touched on. There's Holocaust jokes he makes, because they're all topics that he has identified as topics that you're not supposed to say these things about. Right? You're not supposed to joke about these topics. You're not supposed to say anything that goes against the mainstream narrative on these topics. When you combine the joke and the point that goes against the mainstream narrative, you're going to get a lot of people's attention, right?
Yeah, so I guess it's almost like before, when jesters would sort of, take aim at the people in power and maybe other stuff as well. But like now it's sort of, people or comedians take aim at the people in power, but it's also, I guess the thing that makes it funny, or one of the things that makes it funny, is that they make jokes essentially about things that people put like not put sacredness on, what consider sacred.
That is
right?
true. Yeah,
Right. And that takes the form of both people and ideas, right? So like taking the piss out of people's idols and people in authority and stuff, but also taking the piss out of ideas that you're at least told you're not supposed to criticize or question and stuff like that.
Right. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, we take the piss out of powerful people who've been put on a pedestal, right? Such as, the president or a king or whatever. But the reason that's funny is because that person is in such power that you're not supposed to do that. But that's the same reason it's funny for him to rip on someone suffering from an extremely debilitating disease. It's because they have also a lot of power in that you're not supposed to joke about that. It is funny for the same reason, even though the core difference would be that the person who's got lots of power and money, it seems like it's more fair to roast on them, because why would they care? But the person who's very, very sick, it seems unfair. But, that's something we can talk about anyway. But the point is, the reason it's funny is the same in both cases, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's talk about that, because you were saying at the start did you say you wanted to talk about how it's okay to punch up, but is it ever okay to punch down?
Yeah.
And what is considered punching down? Because I don't say Ricky Gervais. So if we take Ricky Gervais's joke about the baldy joke, right? Now, obviously, if anyone hasn't seen Ricky Gervais's show, just go watch it on Netflix, and then you'll understand the joke in full. But you kind of said like enough before for people to understand what we're talking about. So I feel like someone could say that joke is punching down, because how further down can you go than a kid with cancer, right?
It's really the lowest. Yeah, I really don't think there is any point below that.
Yeah, but the thing is that personally, I don't see that joke as punching down, because, and he even says this in a lot of his interviews, there's a difference between the subject and a target of a joke.
Right.
And if I understand that joke correctly, the way I interpret it is that the subject of the joke is obviously kids with cancer, which is what gives you that sense of like, oh, should he be joking about this? And the fact that he does say something funny makes it even funnier, because it's funny about something that you're not supposed to laugh about.
Right.
But the actual target of the joke, in my how I understand the joke, is that the target of the joke is him behaving inappropriately with kids who have cancer, right? Rather than the kid themselves.
Yeah. I suppose I get what you mean. He's the butt of the joke, not the kid.
Or the inappropriate behavior is.
Well, and this is part of the shock of this is part of humor. It's the subverting expectations and the shock. Like when you start talking about kids in a cancer ward, everybody starts to go, "Oh, better tiptoe around this and be kind and gentle." And when he's on the stage being like, "All right, Baldy, and you should have asked to get better, shouldn't you?" And like messing, it's like the opposite of what you would expect him to act like, knowing that he isn't evil and that you've not come along to watch Ricky Gervais, the devil. Who hates everyone and everything and does nothing good for nobody and spiteful, disgusting prick. That's not what he is. And that's why it's funny, because he's saying these things, these very, very seemingly mean things, because it makes you laugh, not because he actually went to a ward or some hospice and did that. Right? That's the comedy of it. So yeah, you're right. It's this. Yeah, you're right. The subject of humor is we're not laughing at those poor children because they're dying. We're laughing at his behavior with these children being complete opposite of what you should act like.
Yeah.
Like if it was, this is another point. If this was a comedy skit on TV, imagine that. So you got the kids in the beds, and imagine if it was like extras type thing where it's like it's almost real, right? So it's Ricky Gervais, and he's going in and he's playing Ricky Gervais. And he comes in and he just bombs with these kids. Like he just does the most horrible comedy with them. And he's really rude and really abrasive. And they're all kind of silent. One of them starts crying. You would laugh because that is a funny scene. That would be a hilarious skit because none of it's real. But the context and it would make it very funny. All he's done is that, but in a stand-up format. And if you actually believe any of that to be real, I mean, then you shouldn't watch movies, should you? Like you shouldn't watch, then no one should ever be a Nazi in a movie as an actor because, this person's going to think you're a real Nazi. It's a ridiculous kind of concept to think that he means anything he's saying when it comes to those kids,
So what do you think is, or I don't know how to ask the question, like, how far do you think, so how you were saying before about how a lot of the sort of ripping on Christians and conservatives has become hack because it's just been done to death, right?
Yeah.
How far do you think we have left to go with the progressive stuff? Because I've got to be honest, when I watched Ricky Gervais's latest, what was it called?
Armageddon. Yep.
Yeah, Armageddon. Like overall I enjoyed it, but there were certain times when he told jokes, and I actually would need to watch it again. I can't remember the specific jokes now. But there were certain times where he made jokes where I was like, I can understand the joke, but I don't find it as funny as I would have because I've heard him hit this topic before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think we're getting to the point where there are certain things that are becoming a bit hack.
Yeah.
Unless someone comes along and is super creative with the same subject, but does it in a much more creative way, if you get what I mean.
I get what you mean. I guess with Ricky Gervais, it's a couple of things I would say. It's that if you put it this way, despite your feelings about the special and my feelings about the special, maybe we're both a bit like, yeah, there was some moments where I thought, okay, he did that before, I'm pretty sure, something similar. And I also thought the special before that. I was like, I'm pretty sure he recycled a joke there. Despite the fact that he does this, he won a Golden Globe Award for this last one, and it was his biggest one ever. Yeah. So I guess all he's doing is, I think TV executives and people making series and movies could learn a lot from this. He's not reinventing the wheel every time he does a show. He goes, oh, that worked really well. Okay, well, I'll just tweak it a bit and put some new stuff in and do it again. Why would he change it dramatically when people love it? And people keep saying this stuff about him. They say, oh, he's washed up. He's just an old man now. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's a boomer. He's terrible. He's making he's talking about woke still. Woke is so 5 years ago. Yeah, okay, he just won a Golden Globe and made literally millions and millions, one of his biggest ever specials. You don't know what you're talking about. He does. And one more point before I'll finish off on that is that also, whether people like it or not, he's a trendsetter, not a follower. So if he wants to keep talking about being woke when woke isn't cool to talk about anymore, doesn't matter. He'll make it cool again because he's Ricky Gervais and he's probably one of the most famous comedians alive. So if he sets the trend, he doesn't follow the trend, right? Yeah. Same with Dave Chappelle, same thing.
Yeah, and it also may be a case of that, like, I'm slightly different from his general target audience because he's thinking, okay, I'm putting on a comedy set and I want it to be the biggest comedy set ever, right?
Yeah.
So who am I going to aim it at? Am I going to aim it at people like Lawrence, who are, let's be honest, chronically online and like constantly consuming media around, you know, current events or culture war stuff or etc.?
Right.
Or is he going to aim it at normal people that actually just, you know, I mean, yeah, I have a job, but like normal people who have jobs and don't spend that much time online and all this sort of stuff, you know?
Right.
Like normal people who have normal lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm making myself out to be like really abnormal, but you get what I mean.
Well, you're a YouTuber, so you're not a normal person, and I'm not a normal person either. We're both very much like apart from the rest of society. The rest of society has a completely different life to the ones that we live, and the majority of people fall into another category. That is, we're all the same. We all hang out. It's not like we're special or something, but our day to day is very different from everybody else's day to day. So his stuff definitely appeals to a lot of people that have that other day-to-day that we don't share. People that, like you said, people that don't look into this kind of stuff. They're not looking into philosophical topics or anything. They just see the impact that these massive issues are having on their friends and families and stuff. And they have probably debated this with their friends and families, about debates about especially trans stuff, debates about, I don't know, religion, debates about politics. They have this stuff. And then he comes on stage. To them, what he's saying is brand new. And it's like, oh, this is stuff I've been talking about like every now and then. For me and you, this is stuff we're exposed to literally like 10 times
every
a day.
day.
Every day, you know? So yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean, yeah. And
so
yeah, go on.
I'll go on. No, because I was gonna bring us on to another thing.
I was gonna say, to wrap that point up, I guess I had something about the topic, yeah. So I guess while we've touched on it a couple of times, we touched on the kids topic, but we didn't actually we didn't get into punching down on, for example, with the trans topic, right? Because that is both him and Dave Chappelle's thing. It's not really been the jokes about kids, although that was pretty bad for Ricky Gervais. But the thing that keeps on popping up with them is that both of these guys are just raging transphobic bigots, right? And that's why you shouldn't support them. When I made a post about Ricky Gervais donating £2 million to animal charities and being vegan and telling people he's vegan and all the stuff that he's done, like he's gone after hunters online and things like that, a lot of vegans and also just people in general pop up and say you shouldn't support him, he's transphobic. And this is a result of him punching down, if you want to call it that, by making jokes about not about trans people, but he's made jokes about trans activists. That's pretty much where he's focused
and the
on.
orthodoxy surrounding certain parts of it.
Yeah,
a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, I can't even fully remember the jokes he did in Armageddon about this topic, but he did.
Yeah, I've got to admit as well, I can't remember the ones he did. I remember the ones in Humanity, actually. What was the one before Armageddon? Supernature or Humanity?
I think it was, I don't know, Supernature maybe.
Anyway, the one that he did before Armageddon, I remember the jokes from that more than the ones in this one. So obviously the ones in the past when he did the joke about, you know, the women with wombs are like dinosaurs. They're really, you know, like
old school. Old-fashioned women.
School.
Which on its face, I mean, what's transphobic about that? That is obviously just a silly joke. Because, and obviously, if you were to try to describe trans women as old-fashioned women, as in like, oh, that's what women have always been, then you're clearly deluded. Like if trans women are anything, they are they're new. It's a new thing. It's a new, you know, the surgeries and stuff, the advancements in technology. This is all new. This is not like historically present. So the joke isn't even if you take him seriously in the joke, it shouldn't be offensive. It's just an observation, right?
Yeah. So even if you're one of these people who doesn't get subtlety and takes everything super literally,
right,
it still makes sense.
It's still not offensive, right? But the other one I heard him make was when he was mocking trans activists, not trans people, trans activists, and not even trans activists. He was most of the people who do the activism on behalf of this community are not even trans themselves, right? So what happened was he was talking about the pronouns and stuff and specifically pronouns of like murderers and rapists, and how in the comment sections people are correcting people who get the pronouns wrong for someone, you know, and he made the joke like, oh, he raped me and she raped you, and he was doing this joke, bit like getting angry on behalf of, And I'm trying to find the transphobia there. I mean, that is ludicrous to correct people on someone's pronouns when they are some kind of predator, some violent criminal. You know, it is ludicrous.
Well,
so, you know,
yeah.
it's funny. It is funny. How is that not funny? That's the thing people focus on, right?
Yeah. I think it's a case again of like, and to be honest, I think even in an interview he was talking about this exact thing about where it's the distinction between the topic and the subject, right? Because like what I don't understand why people are surprised that a comedian is making jokes about something that, like, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, everyone knows that there is somewhat a culture of silence around these issues, right? Like, even people who are progressive and 100% sign up to these ideas, I think they would recognize the fact that there are many, they may even be happy about this, that there are many people who feel like they can't express their genuinely held opinions, not expressing them out of any form of malice or trying to upset anyone. It's just something they genuinely believe. You know, they're just not on board with this sort of new way of thinking about gender, and they feel like they can't be part of the conversation or in like a genuine way, or they will essentially get sort of like run out of the conversation. I feel like people even on the others, you know, on the other side from them of the aisle can probably recognize that. Who's surprised that a comedian is making a joke about that topic? Like, that's literally what they do. If there's a sort of meme in the culture, or there's a person in the culture that people get like really ultra sensitive about. Another example in the past is like the royal family, right? A lot of comedians would make joke about the royal family. Like, Britain now is less a fan of the royal family in general, like the general populace. But back when people were a lot of comedians would make jokes about the royal family.
Right.
Back then, if Prince Andrew came out back then, I mean, they would have had a field day. But now everyone's moved on from the royal family, so it didn't really get picked up on as much. I actually forgot where I was going with my point.
No, I was just gonna like, add to this that if it's unusual that I feel like the whole trans topic is the only topic that if you joke about, it is assumed that you hate trans people. And by the way, transphobia, I've still not been able to get somebody to properly define what that is, but let's just call it hatred. Like, let's just say they basically what they're saying to him is they're not calling him a transphobe. They're saying you hate trans people. That's what they're saying when they call him that, right? If you make a joke about that,
like, you treat them as lesser or something.
You hate them. It's a hatred thing. It's discrimination. You hate them. You think they are whatever, right? That you hate. It's a hatred thing because, like we've said in previous podcasts, to say that, oh, you think they're weird, that's not really that big of a deal because we all think we're weird for all different reasons. Some people think I'm weird, think you're weird. There's some people, I don't know,
people from other cultures are weird. They
do
weird shit. Like, someone in Japan will think we're weird.
Right, exactly. So thinking someone is weird is not by itself a problem. So they must be saying you hate them. And that is a problem. To have hatred for somebody because of who they are, that is an issue, right? I'm with you on that. That's what they're saying. They're saying you hate trans people, right? When they throw that accusation at him. But then by that logic, he makes jokes about the terminal kids. So he must hate terminal kids too. And he also makes jokes about, religious people. So he must hate religious people. He doesn't. I think he hates religion, but not the people. He made jokes about animals in there. He even made a joke a couple of times, not like
about slugs.
Yeah, I mean, he's made jokes about animals. He doesn't hate animals clearly. He's made jokes about, and they say the same thing for someone like, I don't know, say like Andrew Schultz would be a good example of another comedian who makes jokes. He jokes about literally everyone. He jokes about black people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people. He jokes about disabled people. He recently did a joke where he was, I mean, you got to see this clip, right? So he's talking to the crowd and he's talking about women and their eggs, right? And he points to a woman in the crowd. He goes, this is Andrew Schultz, by the way, not Ricky Gervais. Andrew Schultz. He points to the woman and goes, because you're born with all the eggs you're ever going to have for your entire life, right? And she goes, oh, I'm trans. And he's like, oh, I picked the wrong person to ask that question to. and this person's laughing, like it's hilarious. And he just goes off. And it's not like roasting this person. It's it's playful, but all the jokes are
Mm-mm.
now trans related jokes, right? And
Mm-mm.
she's here with this guy, right? And then this guy, he's like, "Oh, are you together? Are you on a date?" And he's like, "Did you know? Did you know before, or are you just finding out now?" And the guy's like, "No, I knew." He's like, "Okay, okay." And he's like, "And you sat and you made, and who took who?" And she's like, "I took him." And he's like, "Okay." And you made him sit right in the front row, huh? He's like, "Everyone's gonna know about this, huh?" And it's like it was a really good moment, but his jokes could be viewed as transphobic by
Mm.
some people who want to get offended. But I mean, he
Mm-mm.
clearly doesn't hate trans people, doesn't hate this person, and he doesn't
Yeah.
hate all the
He's
other
having
people he
banter
jokes
back and
about.
forth with someone.
But he does this with, I'm telling you, he does this with everybody. And he
Mm.
sometimes gets really offensive too. Like the jokes he makes about them are stereotyping them. He makes jokes
Mm-mm.
about the general stereotypes of people, and things that have been deemed to be racist, but like pretty much by everybody. But when he does it in these contexts, it's clearly playful and clearly a joke. So
Yeah, yeah.
there's no hatred. But my point is, if you're going to be accused of hating everyone you joke about, then you're everything then. You're an everything
Yeah.
phobe. You're an ist of everything. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think oh, go on.
I don't know. If you were still pondering, I was going to say I've done some jokes in my last stand-up set. I did a joke about the whole bloody conflict with Israel Palestine. I did a joke about that. I did a joke about Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine, just to make sure we get this podcast demonetized. And I made the joke that people, it's like trends, it's like Pokemon cards. People just jump onto the next big trend and stuff. And I made a joke about like a card game, and it was like a war card game, and obviously it was like it's quite a violent war card game. And at the end of it, I said, "Oh, I don't think that's suitable for kids," which was a very disgusting nod to what's happening right now in this conflict, right? Does that mean I hate those children or that I hate anyone? Like, no. And it's, it's crazy that somebody would think that. It's just a stupid comment to make people go and then laugh. That's the only purpose of it, right?
Yeah. It could be that. So I reckon if I'm gonna like put myself in the shoes.
Put your shoes in the self.
So if I'm gonna put myself in the shoes of the person who does say that is punching down, or that there's, I I I would guess that maybe they're not saying that it's hatred, but it's treating that group of people with less respect, or treating them with less dignity than they deserve, or that you would treat other groups, for
They've
example.
deified them a
Because
little, I suppose.
do what to them?
They've deified them. They've given them the position of some kind of god. They are not to be
Right.
disrespected. They are holy, kind of thing.
Right, but I think the reason they would have given them, and I'm not saying this is a good reason, but I'm saying the reason they would have given them that is because they see them as a group that is struggling, for example, like the kids,
Right.
or the or trans people.
Right.
And I reckon that type of person is the type of person that prioritizes I don't even, because compassion is the wrong word. They prioritize like protection, even though it's a weird form of protection, over things like freedom to be able to joke about things, I guess, or like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. In their
So
eyes,
maybe they don't think it's a hatred. Maybe they think it's like a disrespect sort of thing, or you're treating them as lesser.
if it was just disrespect, then it wouldn't be as big of a deal as it is. I think it is an accusation of hatred. I really do think it is that, because otherwise, why would there need to be this big hoo-ha every time somebody makes a joke about one of these protected groups, protected in quotes, by the way, right? Because if it was just a simple kind of like, oh, it's a bit of disrespect, no one would care.
But the thing is you got to remember that often the people that sort of are like overprotective in this way are also the people who think like words are violence,
right? Well, that's
or disrespecting a group of people because they're in that group of people is the first step on the way to genocide. You know all these.
All
sorts
right,
of
so
things.
that which is a crazy jump in
Yeah.
logic, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm not completely ignorant to the reasons people get upset. I just think that the more simple thing to do for them is to not view any of this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, okay, for example, okay, let's put it this way. They shouldn't view it, for one. But for two, if that's the logic they're going to go with, that people making jokes about people and groups they don't want them to make jokes about is the precursor, it's the gateway drug to a genocide, right? Well, then that would be the same for the movies, wouldn't it? I mean, like, I watched a movie, the Hitler movie, right, where they kind of reenacted Hitler's final days and stuff. And to be totally honest with you, it didn't really show Hitler in that bad of a light. It was more of like a drama. So should they not have made that movie? I mean, what a strange concept. Like, oh, they should never make another Nazi movie ever again, because some people might be inspired to be Nazis, or because ultimately all comedy is another art form. It's if it were put into skit format, it would just be a comedy show, but it's stand up and the person's pretending they hold these very horrible opinions to make people laugh. That's all it is. I mean, and yeah, I mean, there's probably, if you want to really, really dig into someone's jokes, there's probably a nugget of truth somewhere down the line. Like, there is actually some opinion they have that they've built a silly joke out of. I mean, that's pretty much comedy. For example, for me, when I'm sat around thinking about jokes, like, I think about some of the most, I mean, look, everyone thinks about some of the most horrible stuff, right? I'm betting, Lawrence, I'm betting you over the last week have had some disgusting thoughts.
Remember, this is being recorded.
Right? Haven't you, though? Haven't you? You've had some disgusting thoughts, right? Now, like, and I have too, and I get disgusting thoughts as well. The only difference between the average person and somebody who writes comedy is when the average person gets a disgusting thought and that they just go, oh, bloody hell, where'd that come from? And they move on. When a comedian gets one of these nasty thoughts, they go, oh my God, that's horrible. I can do a joke with that. That's the difference. That's it. It's not like you agree with everything that pops into your head, but it's sometimes good to verbalize it because it makes people laugh out of shock sometimes, you know?
Yeah. So can we go on to the first thing I said I wanted to talk about I want to know your opinion on if you think there's anything that is not really... Yeah, it shouldn't be joked about. I don't know if we need to use language like it's immoral to joke about anything like that, but it's just like, you can't think of any context where it would be okay to joke about it. Because I've got to say, like, I mean, if I don't know if you're looking at the live chat, if people want to submit examples.
There's no example. There's nothing that I'll let you know if someone does. I can't think of. I mean, there's only the only one you gave one earlier that if you're in some kind of hospital ward, you probably shouldn't. But even, I mean,
right, but that's a specific context.
But it's not also
that's a specific context.
Bear with me though. Also, I still think somebody could pull it off. I still think, like, if Ricky Gervais, for example, went into one of these wards with people, let's say, call it kids who had all these problems, I reckon he could pull off a pretty good roast that would make them laugh at themselves and be able to take it, like, not so seriously, if it was carefully constructed and, you know, done like slowly building up, right? You don't just go in and open up with something horrible, but you build up to it, right? I think it could be done. So even in that context, even in that very sensitive context, it could, there are jokes that could be told that you would imagine would go down badly, but actually probably wouldn't, as long as they're old enough to understand the jokes, right? That's the other thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I can't think of specific examples now, but I've heard jokes both, like, in comedy sets and just also, you know, you just, like, people in general life tell jokes. And I've heard people tell jokes that I've thought, I did not think, like, I'm so surprised they pulled that off.
Right.
Like, you know, those jokes that someone says and you're like, that's right on that line, and they could have, like, if they just did it a bit shitter, either way, like they did too much or too little,
right?
That, like, that joke wouldn't have landed, and they just got it on the sweet spot.
This is it. We do have a suggestion, by the way. Thank you, Veggie Sheba. Horrible scenarios that involved mass innocent casualties that recently happened. Time is important in comedy. You can't make a 9/11 joke the day after. So
yeah, I mean,
go on.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I'm not gonna one, because it will probably just be a shit joke if I come up with it on the spot. But I'm not gonna come up with a joke as an example on the spot now. But I mean, I don't see why. Like, look at it like this: people in horrendous circumstances, when they're actually in the horrendous circumstances, make jokes about those horrendous circumstances,
Yes,
right?
they do.
And those are the people in it.
Yeah.
So I don't understand, why would it be worse for them to
It's
use that as a coping mechanism
yeah.
for
Look,
someone else who's also coping with it, but from an external point of view? Like, if someone's a news anchor and 9/11 has just happened and they're taking the piss out of the people,
mm,
well, that's them just being a dick. Like,
mm,
those aren't really jokes, right? Do you get what I mean?
right. That's
And
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
also like, those are just, if they are trying to make jokes, they're just bad jokes, right? You can tell good jokes in those contexts and it'd be completely fine, in my opinion.
I mean, there are yes, I agree with what the Veggie Shiba was saying in that. Yeah, if you're gonna roast those people, I mean, right, directly roast those people. There's probably a yeah, it's probably there's like douchey jokes to be made for sure
Yeah.
that most people wouldn't find funny, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't make them just because most people wouldn't find them funny. It's not like it's wrong to make the joke. It's a douche move, and most people are gonna not gonna laugh. But I guess what we're trying to say is it ever wrong? I guess we are talking morally to make a joke.
Maybe, but I think the thing with this example is not that, um like, when what did the veggie person say? They
About
said
some
roasting them,
horrible,
right?
no, just a horrible scenario that involved massive innocent casualties that recently happened. You can't make a joke about 9/11 the day after, which I
Right,
think you
right,
can,
right.
by the
Okay.
way.
So, yeah, I think you can, but I think there's a difference between bad and good jokes, right?
Right.
So if someone is just roasting them, like, it's just someone taking the piss and going balls deep into just trying to annihilate these people with using them as the butt of a joke.
Mm,
First of all, to be honest, I don't think anyone's going to find that funny, and I think
yeah.
that person is just dick, right? But that's completely different from someone putting together a well-constructed joke that is using something like horrible that's going on at the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, they're uh actually, I won't use that example because I don't think they were telling jokes. But anyway, go
I
on.
mean, there was a pretty on the like there was a I don't know, like I'll tell you this joke. So basically, you know who Pete Davidson is, right?
I might I don't know the name, but I probably know who the guy is.
So
Yeah.
basically, Pete Davidson is a comedian, American comedian, actor, and his dad died in 9/11, right? So that's a pretty damn sore spot. Not that
Yeah.
long after it, I think it was only a year or two, maybe a little more after it, he did a roast where they were roasting him, the roast of Pete Davidson, right? It's like that show, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I've seen. Yeah, is this the one where there's that guy in the wheelchair who often goes on and he just, like,
I don't know,
rinses everyone?
It's like a
Okay.
professional, like big famous show.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're
And
talking about, though. Yeah.
one of these comedians went, it's something along the lines of, it's great that we're all here together for the roast of Pete Davidson. The last roast he went to was the roast of his dad,
Oh
and it was
no.
like, it was honestly the what, but
Yeah.
he loved it. He thought it was hilarious. And the thing is, like, obviously, not everybody's as thick-skinned as that, right? But there's
But
no
that's what this
doubt
event's about.
there's no doubt that that is a well formulated. It wasn't exactly like that, but that is a very, very
Yeah.
good joke, and it's good because of how horrible it is. But it
Yeah.
is a joke, and that this person is not genuinely making fun of the fact that his dad died. The joke is that everybody thinks that's what they're doing. If that makes sense, that is like
Mm.
Ricky Gervais was saying, like the thing you said earlier, the subject of the joke is not the fact that his dad died in 9/11. It is the person being so horrible that makes people get shocked and laugh, and knowing that they don't mean it. That's the nice part where it's like, yes, you said
Mm.
something horrible. He's laughing because he knows that you're just messing around, and it's just meant to shock. And that
Yeah.
I think people forget that when it comes to jokes. They forget that even the most horrible, offensive thing, it's usually just meant as like
Mm.
to make you laugh, right? And so you reminded me of something. people in these situations, you're right, they do make jokes. And actually, Seb was telling me about this. Seb Alex told me that Lebanese people have some of the nastiest, darkest humor because they've had so many conflicts and stuff in the past, and they've been getting bombed and stuff. And apparently the humor just got to like just ridiculously morbid levels because people were dying every day. And so, yeah, they made jokes about it. And so you're right. You are right. People turn to humor.
Yeah, because I guess people are just of the mindset of like, we're in an utterly shit situation, but wallowing in it is just going to make it worse. So we might as well try and make light, one, so it's a bit more bearable, and just to distract us from the situation we're in somewhat.
There is something to be said about sitting in the comfort of your home making jokes about people who are suffering, though, which is like obviously not the same as being on the ground with them.
Yes, but I think here is where there's the distinction between the topic and the butt of a joke.
Exactly,
right?
still the same. Yeah.
So yeah, if we're using veggie, what were they, veggie sushi
Shiba.
or whatever, veggie Shiba. So I would understand what veggie Shiba is saying if we're talking about bad jokes. So if someone is constructing a bad joke where that group that has just had something or is having some horrible thing happen to them, they're the butt of the joke. I would just say that's a poorly constructed joke, and people are going to find it distasteful, or like the vast majority of people are. But that doesn't mean you can't have good, well-constructed jokes where that is the topic, but it's not necessarily the butt of the joke, right?
Right. But it also doesn't mean that every single time the innocent is the butt of the joke. It doesn't mean the joke's wrong either. And it doesn't even mean it's bad. Sometimes those jokes where someone is just being absolutely disgustingly horrible to victims of something that was really bad, that can be funny again because of the shock of it. Because you're like, oh my God, that is like so horrible. And that can also make you laugh.
Yeah, it's true. I would say that usually probably happens in like quite specific scenarios, like the one you were talking about, like the roasting thing. So I think like that, if you think about it, those like roasting events where people, they specifically go there to get as like
demolished,
down in the dumps, not down in the dumps because that's sad, but like down in the gutter as possible.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's the whole purpose of it. And people go, I'm assuming they buy tickets, all of this sort of stuff.
Right.
So like, let's just zoom out and think, what is that? It's a group of people who have come together to temporarily suspend reality and leave reality at the door, and and essentially just like enjoy a certain thing that they're doing that doesn't make contact with reality.
Right.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the jokes, they've all gone there understanding that the jokes they're going to tell in that context are not sincerely meant. We're suspending reality right now. We are just making up jokes to be as dirty as possible. It's like people coming together and playing like, well, I don't know if this is a good analogy actually, but like coming together and playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's like they don't actually think that they're fighting a dragon. They've all gone there and they've agreed they're going to suspend reality.
Fucking hell, you just made comedy so lame, so incredibly lame in one sentence. Okay, do you want to? You know what we could do? Should we give people this is the bold. I mean, if the second I say this, there's no going back. They're going to want it. So to prove that this is just that jokes are in fact just ridiculous setups. All it is a premise and a setup, and then changing what you would expect to make you shocked or surprised. That makes you laugh, basically using wordplay or just overacting physical stuff, things like that. It's all that. So we could, if you want to, do a little exercise to prove that. We could pick a topic that is extremely offensive to joke about, and then we could formulate a joke between us right here to show people the thought process that goes into it, and to show there is nothing nefarious in coming up with a joke about a controversial topic, that it is simply a game of just playing with words and seeing what makes what we would find to be a funny piece of, I suppose, word art, right? We could prove it with, if you want to try to do that, but it is bold.
I'm just gonna yeah, I'm just gonna say to people, we can't guarantee it's gonna be a good
No,
joke.
no, not on the spot.
But yeah, I'm happy to. What do we
Let's
What do you want to have people
let's
suggest,
let's
like the
do it.
dirtiest topic?
Let's do
Yeah.
it. People suggest a topic in the comments as to what we should try to formulate a joke about right here live to prove that the formulation of jokes is not based on any kinds of phobes or isms or hatred, and that it is just purely taking topics and finding the funny. And that's it. There's no hatred,
Well,
you know?
we're either going to do that or we're going to demonstrate how shit we are.
No, we're going to demonstrate. We're going to demonstrate that it is based on pure hatred, and then we're just going to be like, oh, yeah, what do we hate about these people? Let's make a joke about it. Like, you know, that might end up is. Oh no, we got someone who's put your wife, David. I think. Well, any more suggestions, guys? I've got jokes about Annie already. You know, the other day. I mean, this is stuff that I'm maybe putting in my next stand-up, so I don't want to ruin it, but whatever. The other day, she said she could hear a bus coming before it actually arrived, right? And like, because she wasn't facing the bus, and she was like, "Oh, is that the bus?" I said, "Yeah." She went, "Oh, I've got great ear sight." And I said, okay. And this is one of the benefits of being with somebody who's non-native English. He says, so I said, yeah, no, it's really good. That's really good. Well done. You're a proper bitch. You're a proper bitch. Do you know that? Because I've taught her bitch means genius, by the way. So you know, this is the benefits of having a non-native English speaker as a wife. You see, so there you go. See, it's just little silly. It's dumb. I made that. The first half was real, by the way. That really did happen. She did say ear sight. But the second half was just stupid and dumb because I thought, how do I... That's a really tame joke about a really tame topic. But that's what I'm working on as part of this next set that I'm doing. That'll be part of it. A lot more polished and a lot more kind of like more of a build-up and stuff. But just for the sake of now, I'm just throwing it out. But yeah, that's the only topic we have so far.
Really?
Yeah.
How many people are watching?
20. Got 20 people. But it's okay. We can come up with a topic ourselves if you want. But I mean, even if we suggest a topic ourselves, that might be like something people try to use. Oh, see, that's why you came up with that topic.
Well, yeah, no, I know exactly.
You come up with a topic, Lawrence. I want you to make it.
Well,
what about if you tell me a topic and then I come up with one, and I give you a topic and you come up with one?
Okay, I'm just worried that I'm not going to be like good enough at it, and there's just going to be dead air for a while.
That's okay. I can talk.
Okay, cool. So a topic for you.
Yeah.
I would go for the grooming gangs in. You might need to give some context for any
grooming gangs in
people.
England. There are these Muslim grooming gangs that have been basically getting kids and you know. Yeah, doing horrible things to them, grooming and stuff, and for money, like selling them around and shit like that. It's really horrible. Yeah,
and it's sort of it's. Well, we don't need to get into all of the politics of it, but anyway, you've given.
Okay, so basically, it's like pedos and stuff, right? Pedos, Muslim pedos. So, what I would do here is, first of all, so what? Okay, I've got the joke already, but I need to explain it.
No, I've just thought of a joke. Can I have this one?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go on. But how did you? Okay, tell the joke. Tell the joke, and then explain how you got there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have
but
to
you
think
said
about how I got there.
You said you had one, and then now.
No, I had a joke that came into my head, but I've got to think about it just popped into my head.
Okay, well, tell it then. Tell it. Just tell it, and then we'll work back.
Well, it's not fully refined.
Oh my god.
It's not fully refined, but it was something along the lines of like, you know, I have great respect for people that, you know, choose a role model, you know, like a religious role model, you know, like a prophet, and really try to emulate what that prophet does. Yeah, like the grooming gangs in Rotherham.
Okay, right. Okay, I see. So okay, pretty good.
So there, I'm taking aim at the fact that I'm not. So I'm using the grooming gangs as a subject, but I don't even actually mention the kids. The taking aim is the fact that people put so much stock and use as an idol someone who was a paedophile.
Right.
Basically.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's mine. You go for yours if
that's good. I mean, I yeah. Okay.
You can have that for your comedy set if you want.
All right. So my one that I've got is I'll tell a joke first. So yeah, with these grooming gangs. So this is horrible though. I've got to warn you, it's not nice. So I've heard like as a response to this whole situation, they've started giving kids more advanced sex ed classes, you know, so they can fully understand what they're doing and they can fully understand the situation, which is really going to help these kids with this whole grooming gang situation because now they'll be able to give better BJs. You know?
I fucking knew you were gonna. Oh my god, that's so grim. As soon as you started talking about the sex ed, I was like, I knew it. You know what it made.
So,
you know what it.
Yeah. Let me explain why. Wait, but first of all, before we move on very briefly, explain how I got to that. So the way that I got to that is, of course, a big, huge topic that has been going around has been kids being exposed to these advanced sex ed stuff and books and things over in the States and now over in the UK, right? A lot of parents aren't happy about it because they're saying, hey, my kids are reading books about people giving each other blowjobs.
We did a podcast on it.
Right, yeah, stuff like that, right? So the people are upset about it, right? So I know that people are upset about that. So that gives me the one part of the joke because like, okay, that's another topic. So the grooming gang is one topic. That's another topic. How can I put these together? Well, people are upset because they feel like their kids are being taught how to do sex acts, right? How does that work with the grooming gangs? Well, obviously, they'd be happy about it, wouldn't they? Because then the kids are going to be better at it. But the joke is that when I start talking about education for kids, people are assuming that it's for the kids' benefit so they can learn when to say no. Now, the bit that shocks them is when I'm actually telling the joke is like it helps the kids because then they'll be able to perform their actions better with these grooming gangs. So like that's the joke. There's no hatred. There's no... Like, I'm not a pedo. The joke is because I know what you're expecting. I know what it's leading up to. You're thinking, oh, because it's going to educate them. Yes, it is going to educate them, just not the way that you're thinking. And that's the joke. And both of these jokes that we formulated, neither of them came from a place of we want someone to hate someone else or anything like that. They come from just what we know people know and the information they know and they expect and doing something different. That is literally the point of a joke. That is all there is to it.
Yeah. So I guess, so wait, if I'm going to apply the flipping thing to mine as well, it's going to be that people were expecting me to talk about some sort of like virtuous way that someone would be following a prophet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I flipped it on its head and basically pointed to the fact that the role model is actually awful.
And if we didn't know the topic first, your joke would have landed even better. Because if you'd have just started talking about religion and say, do you know what? I love religion. I think it's wonderful that people follow a prophet, you know, someone to really emulate, and you could have really sold it if they didn't know the topic. And then when you launch that bit at the end, they're like, you know, like forming grooming gangs, then it's like, whoa, oh my god, that's the mind-blowing bit. Unfortunately for yours, it doesn't land as hard because we already knew the topic. That's why I laughed immediately, because I was like, I know what you're going to end with, which is like, but like without the context, it would have, yours is a banger. Like absolutely hilarious. So yeah, that's it. It's all about subverting expectations. We did get more topics, by the way.
Oh, okay, go on.
We got Veghead who said, topic, people that get upset with nonsbusters. You know, those people that go out and you know, what do they call it? Catching a predator, stuff like that.
Yes, and they sort of they themselves create a fake profile of a young girl. Usually,
look, what is this? Like the only two topics that we got, we got three topics, and two of them are about pedo stuff, guys. Well, this is not a good. This is not a good look for the channel or for my audience. Like you guys, where are your heads at in the toilet? I don't actually want to know where your head's at with the topics you're putting forward. To be honest,
what was the second?
Sorry, go on.
What was the set? You said there was two.
Someone's at nonsbusters, and then pedophilia in the Catholic Church, and then the third topic was someone's sleeping alone on the couch tonight. Oh, that's not even a topic. That's just about my joke about Annie. So the only two topics we got were about nonce stuff. I don't want to double or triple down on nonce stuff. So if we're gonna do another topic, then it'll have to be a new one.
Okay, well, if you want to, because I came up with the grooming gang. If you want to come up with an
one for you, yeah, okay.
Or we can both do it because we both did that last
Yeah, all
time.
right,
So
but like, okay, I want to try and be unbiased though, because I've been coming up with jokes about a lot of topics. I don't want to pick one I've already done because it's not fair on you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so a topic,
And it can't be pedo related.
damn it, that's like most of them. Okay, no, all right, let's go
That's
for
all religion out the window.
So let's go. We're just going controversy only, right? Only controversial topics. So what's controversial right now? Well, I don't want to do any of the big ones.
The obvious.
Yeah, because it's too hacky even right now, to be honest. But what about less controversial? What about the okay? There is kind of one, but I've already kind of touched on it a little. But there is and it's kind of linked with everything going on. But the Jewish tunnels in New York.
Oh, I know that I saw a news story. You might need to give me a bit more context, so I've got a bit more material to work with.
All right, so basically, there's like a sect of Jews in New York, and they had been living underground and doing they had this big underground network, and apparently there was like huge fight happened down there, and that's why the police ended up having to come in and do some stuff or whatever. And it's all been exposed that they've just been like scurrying around underground basically for some reason.
Just out of interest, do you know why they were living under there, or they were using it as a means to get around?
I think both. Apparently, what the leaders had said was that it was a place for them to pray in peace in case of anything that would, I don't know. It was like, it's supposed to be kind of like a bunker or something like that, but they ended up using it for more stuff. I'm not really sure. Okay. It's just, it is quite funny. The whole situation's quite funny. But yeah.
Okay, so
but it's not that controversial though. It's just a topic.
No, I mean, I've instantly got like an acorn of a joke,
right.
But I'd need to work on it a bit more.
Right.
But I mean, maybe I'll tell you my acorn, and then maybe we can sort of like work on it together.
Let's do that then. Yeah.
My acorn is something along the lines of, so I know we would, we're gonna try and avoid it because it was a bit hacked, but I'm gonna have to link it to the conflict.
Oh God.
So
okay.
I'm gonna say something along the lines of, looking at the current state of the conflict, everyone would think that Jews, hate Hamas, but something about their like mirror, like they're using them as like a blueprint in New York, if you get what I mean, because Hamas have all the tunnels under Gaza. So I'm trying to think. Basically, the thing you're turning on the head is that Hamas have gone from, you'd expect them to be the enemy, but they're actually, you're turning it on their head, and you're joking that they are actually idolizing them or sort of trying to emulate them.
No, I get it. Yeah, you could work with that. You could. Okay, so here I've got it for you. I think so. Yeah, for all this time, the Jews have been telling us that, Hamas is terrible because they live in these tunnels, they dig down underground, they live in these tunnels, and they want us to believe that's something that's only criminals would do that, right? Only criminals would do that. And then lo and behold, they've been doing it in New York, but obviously for entirely different reasons. They've been told there was some gold down there. But anyway, the point is that they're both digging tunnels. So yeah, so something along those lines. Just playing on the stereotype that Jewish people are tight and
Or another angle that I just thought of is, you could say, all along we thought that, Hamas were, really trying to embed themselves in the civilian population with all these tunnels. But it actually turns out they were trying to impress Israel. They saw what they were doing in New York, and they thought, well, let's just emulate them, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, there's something there.
But we didn't quite get it.
Well, I mean, I felt like the digging for gold was pretty solid. Like, this brings a whole new meaning to gold diggers, right? There's something there, and then mixing it with the other one. Yeah, there's something there. There's something there. We're not gonna hit gold, in 2 minutes, right? That's what they said. That's why they've been digging for so long. So again, it's just it's stupid. It doesn't make any bloody sense, right? And it's just silly nonsense. And this is pretty much what you do when generating jokes until eventually you do hit gold, and then you're like, oh, I actually really like that one after all the nonsense I've been saying, right? That's kind of how I do it anyway. I write down ideas, and they're not funny. and then I mess with them until I can, because I know there's something there that I find funny. It's just it's not formulated correctly yet, and that's how I do it. We do have one. We'll do one more if you want. We got a topic here that's the UK criminalizing rough sleeping. So I guess they've made it illegal to sleep on the street in the UK.
I wasn't aware of that.
No, I don't know, but I will just assume that it's true because it's a topic.
For the purpose of,
So they're making it. So they let's do this one. We can break down a little more. So they've criminalized sleeping on the street. What do we know about sleeping on the street? What things do people use? Sleeping bags. Sometimes they use tents. It's usually smelly. It's usually drunk, I suppose, is a thing. Usually alcohol is a big part of it. And so that's the other things we know about that, sleeping on the street, and they've made all that illegal.
There's also a completely other angle you could come at it from as well, because when you hear that rough sleeping or sleeping on the street has been banned, people are automatically going to think about homeless people. You could actually, this may only work in the British context, but you could actually flip it and talk about Extinction Rebellion.
Right. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, something like that. There could be a kernel there. I mean, I haven't actually got a joke in mind, but
yeah, I suppose it would be hyper specific for sure. But yeah, God, this one's like it's not as like controversial, or it's not got much of a. So it's hard. I actually find it harder to work with something that's less controversial. But okay, let me think about it a bit more. Like think out loud. So obviously. We've gone through the things that is most associated with this, and now they want to make all of that. They want to make that illegal. There's a joke in here about, I suppose there's a reality here that making it illegal, like the government is most likely the reason people, or like the system is the reason that people have ended here in the first place, and then they're just gonna make being poor illegal. Like there is a joke there for that, right? They you know. Yeah, like the UK, you can't even be poor anymore legally. You can only be, you're illegally poor. Something like that, I suppose, could be there. Right?
Yeah, honestly, I can't. I haven't got anything for this one.
I suppose you could say.
My mind instantly went to the Extinction Rebellion thing. I was thinking you could have something of a. You could do something like this. You could say. The UK government, they just made rough sleeping illegal, right? And I'm sure, as you're all aware, this is a class issue, right? And it's a class issue because why are they bringing this in now? They're bringing this in now because the middle classes, Extinction Rebellion, have just started sleeping on the streets. Right, and you make reference to the fact that poor people. I mean, they've been doing this for fucking ages. The government haven't done shit. Soon as middle class,
this is just a rant. This is just like a progressive rant at this point, though.
I know. I reckon. All
right, I've got it. The UK government just made rough sleeping illegal. So that means instead, what they're going to do is they're going to go out and visit all the homeless people sleeping on the streets and play them some Barry White so they can have smooth sleeping.
I don't get that.
Rough sleeping, smooth sleeping. Rough, smooth.
I don't know who Barry White is.
You don't know who Barry White is? What is wrong with you? All right. Well, everyone understands Barry White is like the king of smooth. How could am I crazy? Have I forgotten who Barry White is? Pick any artist, any smooth music artist, right, and then replace with that. It's a joke.
What's smooth music.
Oh my
like jazz?
God, man, are you for real right now? Like I forgot that sometimes the jokes don't work with you because you're like. Special. Like, I mean, you understand
I'm just looking him up.
You understand the wordplay between rough and smooth, right? I mean, I'm not claiming it's a good joke. I'm just saying it is a joke. Like, but you should at least get it.
I get rough and smooth, but I was more focusing on the fact that like Barry White, I didn't know who the fuck he was.
He does the songs like, all right, we're gonna have to keep. Do we have to keep going on this one because until we get something?
No,
useful?
We don't. We can move on.
No, I mean like the joke. I mean, wait, he does like 1 minute. What's his most famous song?
American. Well, I thought he had a famous song about smooth sleeping.
No, he just sings in smooth like. He does the "Don't go changing Try and please me. Never let me down before. You know that one, right?
No.
Fucking hell, man. All right, forget it. Forget it then. Never bringing up Barry White with you ever again. All right. Well, anyway, that was a dad joke, but it's the only joke we've had so far about this topic.
Yeah.
It's hard to make jokes about. Well, it's not hard. It's just this one's not coming to me right away, and I'm not gonna sit in silence waiting for something to come.
What was there? I forget all the things you listed off at the start. Was there? I swear there was something else that you wanted to cover with the comedy, right?
Right. Okay. We'll get back into a serious mode, are we, and move away from comedy?
No, we don't have to be serious, but I felt like we'd dug ourselves into a dead end.
It's not a dead end. I'm gonna keep on thinking about the jokes about the rough sleeping as we move forward. But I suppose we've covered pretty much everything. I suppose we had what makes comedy offensive. I think we kind of went over that. But who gets to decide what is and isn't allowed? I suppose we've kind of covered that. Nobody does.
It's completely subjective.
Yeah.
And I think by and large, if you're in a situation where you find something unpalatable, just leave.
Right. Well, and also I had a thought about this punching down thing. So isn't there the case that refusing to punch down, could that not be deemed as more offensive than actually punching down? Considering that most comedians are roasting multiple different people, multiple different things, isn't it kind of infantilizing somebody that you won't make a joke about them for the sake of their poor little soft heart, or they can't handle it? Like, isn't that more offensive?
Yeah, I think in the context we're talking about of comedians where the context is obviously meant to be a joke. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's another thing to consider. You're infantilizing people, treating them like babies,
And also, it's just going to backfire because as soon as you tell people they can't make jokes about certain things, there's going to be more jokes made about that thing. So there's just even if you want to pursue your aim of there being less jokes about a certain group of people, it's probably best to just not say anything.
Yeah.
And it will just pass as a phase usually.
I got a good one. Oh, a good one. I got another joke I could make about the rough sleeping, but it's more just sarcasm as opposed to a joke. But it could work, if it's played out well. The UK government just made it illegal for rough sleeping, meaning that all the homeless people on the streets, they're just gonna have to go home.
No, that is funny, actually. That is funny.
You've been on the streets too long, mate, right? Come on, you make it, look at it. Everyone has to walk around you. Can you just go home? Can you just pick up
we're all supposed to have a hobby.
Get your shit and go home.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think we found it. That was not as funny in my head, but as it came out, I was this is not too bad,
Yeah.
There we go. We found it. Sometimes it takes time. And to explain the process there, I was just playing around with the idea that, what are they trying to tell the people to do? Well, they're trying to tell them to get off the street, where would you go if you got off the street? You'd go home, but they don't have a home. There's the funny. It's not funny that they don't have a home, right? That's not the funny bit, but the wording of it is funny because they are homeless and they're being told to go home. It is actually the comedy is actually the police is the comedy. They're the ones, or the government's made it illegal. You're laughing at the government because it's so stupid. You have actually put in the most hilarious law. Like, what do you expect them to do? Are they allowed to? Well, we can keep going. Are they allowed to be on the street but just not sleep? So, like, if they sit awake, can they stay there? Right? Are there people going to come around and go, "Hey, you can't sleep there," and they wake up like, I wasn't. I was just resting my eyes.
Yeah.
I was just resting my eyes. I wasn't sleeping. Oh, okay, then we'll be back in an hour. And if you're sleeping, we're going to have to wake you up again because you're not allowed to sleep on the street. It's stupid. Anyway, that's a whole. There we go. Yeah, that's how you get that one. It just takes a while sometimes on a certain topic, but there you go.
Especially when you're doing it on a live stream.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. But there you go. I mean, that's an example. Like, you don't hate homeless people. I don't hate homeless people. And we're not laughing at homeless people. We're laughing at the situation that they're now in. And we're not...
ridiculousness of the law and the situations it makes.
Right. And we're not even, in this case, there would be no risk here of you or I being told that we're being mean because we're actually roasting the law, which is like, fine. There are other jokes that you could use that would be roasting the homeless people, in which case you could be accused of being like horrible or mean or insensitive. But again, as long as it was clearly a joke, again, it's not, I don't see it as like a huge deal, you know? Like, I don't know, you could spin the joke the other way. And so in this case, you're blaming the law, but it could be spun on and blame them. You could be saying, you know, you could make a really super conservative joke and say something like, oh, you know, I've heard the news that they're making it illegal for homeless people to sleep on the street now, which, yeah, I know, right? I know it is time they got a job and sorted their lives out. I agree. Get them off the fucking street, right? Bloody hell, they've been out there long enough, haven't they? You could do that as well. And that's not as funny, but it is still like the joke is that they're expecting you to sympathize and you don't. You just say horrible, mean things like, oh, I'm sick of walking past these drunks every day. I'm glad they're getting them off the street. I'll go get a job. Come on. And it's in the right audience with the right physical acting with it and stuff. And if you play it up like it's going to be sympathy, switch to aggression, people are going to laugh because they'll be like, oh my God, this guy's evil. And then, you know, you'll say, no, come on, I'm only kidding. And then you'll go on with whatever else you're going to do after that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I've seen loads of jokes like that. I think that's one of the ones where you've there's more risk of that one going wrong, so you've got to be more like skillful in how you play it off.
Right,
but
exactly.
I get what you mean.
Did you see Bill Burr's joke about homeless people?
Maybe if you give me
it's
a bit
really
more detail,
funny.
I might remember.
It's really funny. So he was talking about how he takes food and clothing down to the under these underpasses over in the States, takes them like stuff. And he says he always starts off with good intentions. He's like, I'm a good person. These are just people. They're humans like you and me, you know. And he says, like, as he drives down there, he starts to get all these visions of them just coming out of the tents like the Walking Dead, like, and as the closer and closer he gets, the more and more freaked out he gets. And then he says, by the time I get there, he's like, I had this plan to go over there and be like, hey guys, what's up? And he's like, by the time he gets there, he just gets the bags and throws them and just gets in the car and runs off. And it's just like, it was just this big long story that it seems like a true story, but clearly it's part true. He probably does give them stuff, but he's just messing around and just being extreme with this. You know, he probably does have those thoughts too, because it can be scary going to these homeless camps where lots of people are.
Well, especially in America, where I've heard a lot of them can be walking around whacked out on drugs.
Right, exactly, and it's intimidating.
Which isn't
right?
You know, that's not like a judgment on them. I'm just saying this is what I've heard. Like, that's just the matter of fact.
So like, the premise is that most people feel intimidated by big groups of homeless people because of the fact that it's usually drugs and alcohol, and they do have conflicts between themselves as well. And I've seen those, and you know, play out, and it isn't very. It's all very. It seems uncivilized from our perspective, right? And you have your stereotypes too, and whatever. All he's doing is playing on that fear that most people have, taking it to another level, making jokes about the Walking Dead, people running out with stuff trying to hit him, which is just silly, and we all laugh because it's like, that's probably not going to happen, right? Let's be honest. And then the joke is like, you know, by the time he gets there, all his good intentions are gone, and he just throws out the crap and gets in the car and runs away. And it's like, you know, again, he's making fun of them and himself all together. Isn't hate homeless people, and the joke is just that he is he's just freaked himself out. That's the joke, and his stereotypical mind has freaked himself out in this version of himself that is made for the joke. That's all it is. It's a very just over exaggeration, basically, is the joke here, right? Oh, I lost your audio.
Oh wait.
Oh, you're back again. You're back again. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. Basically, I was just explaining that one as well. You know, because explaining jokes is really, you know, what everybody wants from a podcast about comedy, is to explain jokes, because that makes them funnier, right?
Yeah. Jokes are like frogs. If you have to dissect it, it's probably dead.
All right, there you go. That's a good one. You know, we had a horrible joke earlier on.
Good one that didn't make you laugh.
That's huh? It wasn't a good joke. It was just a good saying.
Oh, right.
I wouldn't call it. But we did have a joke similar to that earlier on. Dillian in the live chat, he said, if I say this, then that's the end of the stream. YouTube's just going to go, nope, nope. But he said, oh God, let me go find it. I've just forgotten the punchline to it. Maybe you can post it again, Dillian, because it was horrible, but I didn't read it at the time out loud for obvious reasons, but I feel like I'm going to do it anyway. Let's see if I can. Anyway, when he posted again, it was pretty brutal. So we answered most of the questions, I think, and
Mm.
I think I went through most of the topics I wanted to go over. Um, and yeah, wait a minute, see if there's anything we've missed. Is there any... Oh, this was an interesting point I wanted to talk to you about. So yeah, so back to what you were saying earlier, where you said that the people who get offended on behalf of these, it's usually not the people who are actually in the group that get offended. It's usually people get offended on their behalf and feel
Mm.
like they got to white knight and defend them, right? Now, here's a situation. Oh, this is, by the way, this is Dillion's joke. He said, dark humor is like children with cancer, never gets old. Horrible, a horrible joke. That's not my joke. If someone cuts that out and posts that of me, look at David Ramm's making this joke, because that for me is I don't. It's just not a joke I would make for multiple reasons.
So
Not because
funny.
I think it shouldn't be made. It's a good joke. It's just I personally wouldn't go for one quite like that. Don't clip me
Yeah,
out
yeah,
as I said it. It was Dillion. Okay, cancel
yeah.
him. I'm Pickle Twitch. Go for him. Anyway. So okay, so usually when people get offended, they're getting offended on the behalf of another because they think those people need to be defended because they are vulnerable, or like you said earlier, they deserve more respect than everybody else, for one reason or another, right? And it's usually, though, it's the vulnerability side, like, oh, don't punch down on these people, they got enough problems. That's what we usually hear over and over again, like, they have enough problems, right? They do have enough problems, I agree. Some of these groups that we're referring to, for example, trans people, for example, LGBT people in general, people at war, people who are being, all the different conflicts going on in the world, all the different issues, human rights violations, all these people have a lot of problems going on. That is true. Now, what I want to ask, right, with these individuals, specifically focusing on the issues we have in the West with, like, let's say, with LGBT or whatever other subsets and small minorities of people in the West,
Mm.
is it better to change the way everybody else speaks to make society more comfortable for them, or is it better to help them deal better with the rest of society so they can integrate in a more successful way? Now, for me, I see trying to change society as an exercise in futility. It's not going to happen. You're not going to change the masses, make them adjust their language and make them adjust what they do and don't joke about to suit a minority. But what you can do pretty easily is explain to these minority groups how jokes are just jokes. They're not trying to hurt you.
Well,
And
also,
you,
I just want to
yeah.
say, remember, like, it's not even a case of explaining to minority groups. Like, most people will find a lot of these jokes funny, even if the group that's being referred to
Oh,
is the
fine.
topic of the joke.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's a subset within those
Sorry, you're
minorities.
right. It's a minority of these minorities that find this stuff
Yeah.
offensive. You're right. And when I say teach, I'm not speaking as in like you and me. I'm speaking as in the people that these people speak to, say therapists or whoever they're getting help from, because I'm talking about people who might be more vulnerable than the average, right? So maybe they're
Mm.
seeking help, maybe they're seeking help from an online community, an online space of people who come together and help. If you are somebody who's in these online spaces who's being asked for help, or you're a therapist, is it not better for you to give advice to these people who are hurt, feelings are hurt, to tell them, I understand and I empathize with you, your feelings are hurt. However, we need to get you to have a better suit of armor here, a thicker skin, because this is going to prepare you better for the world and the outside
Mm.
world than me telling you that you deserve to be treated more specially than everybody else. Being told that you're more special and you deserve different treatment, it's going to be a very tough pill to swallow when you go out into the real world and nobody treats you better or differently, or not many do,
Mm.
right? So instead of trying to expect that, why not work internally and think about, why does this offend me exactly? Why are my feelings hurt? Can I do something about that? Yes, I can. And anybody in a professional format or otherwise who's been asked questions like this should be giving that advice.
Mm.
You can choose to be offended or not. It's a choice. You don't have to be offended.
Yeah, yeah. My only thing I would add is also just like, I would just question whether, if a certain person or a certain group of people have like issues they have to deal with, I don't understand why that means that they can't be the subject of a joke. I understand like the butt of a joke. I do get that. If there is a group that is uniquely or particularly, having issues, I would also find it like, well, I mean, I can't say in every instance because it does depend on the joke, but I can understand why people would feel it's like distasteful to have them as the butt of the joke. But the subject of a joke, I just don't understand that at all. I don't understand why those two things even, I mean, like, think about, again, maybe this is, I feel like this is international enough for people to say, but think about who, at least in the UK, but I think internationally this applies as well. Who's the most joked about person that you can think of in the UK in maybe the past 20 years?
Right.
Or one of the most, right? Okay, now prepare yourself. Madeleine McCann. She had fucking issues, right? Like, the fact that someone has issues or something bad has happened to them, or a group, does not make them, in my eyes, like they can't be the subject of a joke, if you get what I mean. And the only caveat I would add to that is good jokes. Obviously, like, bad jokes, like everyone understands bad jokes are hack and blah blah blah.
It's subjective though. Like, I mean, I know you've said that a couple times, but I mean, it's either they all go or none of them go. I mean, bad jokes are still jokes. In my opinion.
True. No, I'm not saying ban them or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I can understand why, if someone who is like a bit of an idiot and makes a bad joke and completely misjudges the room.
Well, then society deals with that, don't they? Society deals with that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying.
Because like, not many people find it funny, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah. But I'm not saying we need anything new to deal with that. I'm just saying I understand there are jokes that are just like completely poorly timed or badly constructed in some way,
right,
etc.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. And I guess to kind of circle back just for a moment on the what, because we kind of went off.
I was just circle back after my rambling.
Well, because we went off, didn't we? I was talking about that. I think it would be more beneficial to show people how they can become internally more self-confident and strong versus going through life being perpetually offended by every single slight or perceived slight, right, that they see out there, they go through. I think that's really important. But even saying that though, when you were talking about good jokes, bad jokes, and I said society will deal with them. I mean, I look at it, people try and censor these comedians. I'm not trying to censor the people who criticize comedians. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying like, oh, they shouldn't be allowed to criticize them or whatever. I think if someone wants to say, if someone sees a Ricky Gervais joke and they take an offense to it or they just don't like it, you have a couple options that I think are really valid options. You could crack back and roast him right back, which some comedians have done, right? And some of them have got pretty famous for it too. There's that, what's that guy's name? Is it James McAllister? Something like that.
Yeah. I remember the clip.
Yeah, he roasted Ricky Gervais and he got super famous for it because he didn't agree with his takes, right? And so he did jokes back at him. You can do that. That's an option. Yeah. You could make a video aiming to, or a post that aims to just say, okay, I saw you made some jokes about a topic that I'm passionate about. In case you weren't aware, there's a lot to this topic. I don't know if you've actually ever researched it, but here's some information, right? Because maybe you want to, because they've shown an interest in the topic, that maybe you want to educate them a little bit on whatever you think they need educating on, right? That's a perfectly valid. I mean, that's probably the best thing. If you're passionate about something they've made a joke about, that's probably the best thing you can do, is to actually just make or send them an email or whatever, or make a very informative post, and explaining, I don't know, maybe something like that. I mean, these are all you exercising your rights to free speech, which you can do. What I have a problem with is when you go out there calling them names, slandering, calling Ricky Gervais or Dave Chappelle or any comedian transphobic, bigot, evil, terrible people, horrible, and trying to tell them the manager should drop them and the venues should drop them and the streaming services should drop them because they're a horrible person, they're disgusting, they're just like a Nazi and all this crap. that, I mean, that, all of that still falls under your rights to say all those things. And I for one am like, oh, you should always have the right to verbalize your frustrations. It shouldn't be illegal to do that. But I mean, I would just ask I would just ask you not to. I'd say like those things are really horrible things to say about somebody in a serious way, and they are. It's just silly. It's just very silly, and it can actually, their jokes are not gonna take away your income, but your silly, calling of names and stuff could actually end up negatively impacting somebody's life. Because people do tend to take quite drastic action when they think somebody is a racist or a transphobe, right? People get physically attacked,
Yeah. And especially for the people who aren't, I mean, we've been using like very famous people as examples here, like Andrew Schultz, Ricky Gervais, but a lot of the people who, these people who launch sort of complaints at people or like hate campaigns against people, like the people who get that has real consequence for is usually the people lower down the pecking order.
Right, yeah.
Like club comedians and stuff. If we're using comedians as
That's
an
true.
example, like Ricky
Yep.
Gervais, you're not going to get anyone to drop Ricky
No,
Gervais.
that's
I
true.
mean,
That's
he
true.
literally, yeah, like he's just a guaranteed money earner. No one's dropping him. Give up.
This is
But
right.
like
This is
people,
more relevant
yeah,
for
for
like,
people lower down.
yeah. And here's a final point on this topic, that if someone insists on going and saying, no, I want them done. I want the government to step in, or I want these venues to shut them down. I want censorship. I want full on censorship on this person, because they'd made jokes I don't like, and that's the end of it. If you're using your free speech to do that, right? You're using your free speech to try and shut down somebody else's free speech for making jokes that you don't agree with. And if you succeed in that, right? So you succeed, you get them censored by, I don't know, the mainstream, just everything, or even potentially the government steps in and gets them on some kind of hate speech law, which, by the way, hate speech laws are, in my opinion, one of the most ridiculous things to have been introduced. Because I mean, how do you even, anyway, whatever, we'll talk more about that another time.
Another topic. Yeah.
So imagine you succeed in all of that, right? So what you've just done, if you succeed in all of that against a comedian, is you've just given the power of censorship to a mob, right? And tell me this, do you think there's no chance at all that that mob could ever turn on the things that you want to talk about and censor you and something you're passionate about? When you're out there calling for censorship and cancellation, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you're calling for restrictions on what people can and can't say, not inciting violence, because they're not inciting violence. They're making jokes, or even if they're just sharing opinions that are unpopular and you want them shut down for it. For example, I wouldn't want to, there's with anti-vegans or whatever, you might think I would want to click my fingers and shut them all down. But I know that if I did that, there is a very real chance that one day it could be me that gets shut down from the same system that I use to shut them down. It is always, you have to be passionate about the right for people to say things, and then, disagree with what they say and openly, speak about them, but don't call for them to be silenced. That is such a, you really are shooting yourself in the foot when you do that.
Yeah, and just to like reiterate what you're saying, we were talking about it at the start, how outrage culture or offense culture has changed, right? Like it used to be conservative Christians, now it's progressive people. So that just, further speaks to your point about how if you hand the power to censor to someone, like we've seen that outrage culture changes who the target is, right? Or where it's coming from. So as soon as the power gets handed over to some authority, their sensitivities could change as well. Do you get what I mean? So we've already seen it happen in terms of where the outrage is coming and who's getting pushback against them. So if we hand that sort of power over to someone, I don't see why the direction it would be used in would not keep changing.
Right.
It's not like now we've put this law in where you can silence people, and sensitivities of the culture around us are just locked in now. Like it doesn't work like that.
No, it's always, yeah. What is it that there's a saying that today.
Oh, but are you? Oh, go on. Yeah. What I was gonna, I don't know if people can still hear me, but
There you go.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
back,
keeping
I think.
talking.
I'm
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Do you,
Got it. I'm back. I'm back, right?
okay. No, it's coming through it's coming through the wrong microphone.
Oh no, not on my side, but yeah, on your side. You keep talking. It's all good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think the quote you were talking about is like, yesterday they came for the someone. Was it the You're gonna know it
I've got
better
it.
than
I've
me
got
if
it.
you
It's
brought up this
basically.
quote.
It was basically the. Yeah, like so today's progressive is tomorrow's bigot, basically. That's what I'm saying. Like in 10 years from
Oh,
now,
right.
all the ideas that we think are super progressive are going to be the ideas of the conservatives, right? And this is just how it goes. Like and there are lots of things now that with the progressive side of things that you just would never have ever imagined would end up as progressive ideals.
Right. Yeah.
And I saw a clip the other day, or even today, of is it Bill Maher? I can't remember these guys. There's a couple of Bills in the US, right, that talk about this kind of stuff. Bill Maher's the TV host, right? He does and
Yes.
he's a
Yeah. Sort of
liberal.
atheist secular type.
Liberal,
Yeah.
right? He's like lefty, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, he had on Seth MacFarlane and this other guy, and Seth MacFarlane's like a super like hyper progressive wokey. Do you know who he is? By the way,
Is he? He does Family
yeah,
Guy.
apparently, yeah, and apparently he's like super far left. Apparently, I didn't know this, and basically they were all kind of joking about, oh, why do people vote for Trump? Why do people vote for Trump? And just making these jokes. I think it was Bill Maher, by the way. I don't know. Maybe it was. I'm gonna have to Google it to make sure. Because if I tell this like story and people go looking for him, it's like, oh, it wasn't even him. Bill Maher. It's like the grey-haired guy, right? Yeah, it is him. Yeah, okay, it is Bill Maher. Right, great, cool. So Bill Maher was saying, oh, I can answer that question. He goes, because he's like, I'm on the left, right? But and he gave a couple examples of stuff that's come up. And he's like, oh, he brought the gender stuff up, and he said, like, I think it was something like, well, it's just basically, I can't remember exactly what he quoted. You have to go watch the clip. It's up on YouTube. Just Bill Maher, Seth MacFarlane, and he basically says the more crazy stuff that comes from our side, and people look at that and they say, huh, okay, I can't vote for that, and that's the simpleness of it. That's why they vote for Trump, right? So my point that I was trying to get at here is things that the progressives could never have imagined that would be considered to be what they should support 15 years ago. Today, there's a lot of people like Bill Maher who are like, whoa, like, he's been around for a while, and he's like, this is not this political aisle that I remember. And this is just to back up what you were saying, that it changes sometimes even rapidly, and then and Bill Maher will one day most likely be ending up on the other end of one of these censorship campaigns, when he is probably somebody who in the past has partaken in censorship campaigns on other people for problematic opinions. He's going to be receiving one of those soon, most likely, because he refuses to get on board with some of the more crazy ideas that are coming up. And this is going to keep happening over the years and years and years to come. More and more ideas are going to come, and you're going to disagree with a lot of them. And one day someone might try and silence you. And if you give them the powers out there to be, we're happy with silencing people, this is where it'll come back and haunt you.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were actually going to read out this quote, right?
Oh yeah, go on then.
So I don't know if this is a quote or a poem. It's not long, but it's called "First They Came." Do you know this one?
Go for it. I've heard it, yeah, but go on.
Okay, yeah. So it's first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I'm not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak out because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. So it sort of goes to the point that you're talking about how you may not like certain things that other people say, and hey, look, I don't like some things that other people say, but I respect their right to be able to say things.
Yeah.
I don't respect what they say necessarily, but I respect the right, and hold on to the right for people to say that, because I understand that if I hand over the power to someone else, or sign off on the power for them to get silenced, then that power could just as equally be used against me.
Right. Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And I've got this quote, by the way, from what Bill Maher was saying. It wasn't gender stuff. I was getting mixed up with And the other video I sent you earlier.
I saw a video between Seth MacFarlane and Bill Maher on COVID stuff.
It wasn't that.
But maybe it was from the same conversation. Because it was just a clip I saw.
Let me just like run to the bit where he explains it. 1 second. They're talking about like how they need to keep Trump out, and then this was it. Yeah. So he says, okay, this discussion about Trump that we've been having all night, it was a question I was going to ask you. And he said the Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." And it talked about how we separate sports like the NBA. And the only reason we separate them by sex is because it's socialization. That's the only reason we do it. And
who's saying
Bill Maher was saying this, right? And he said, and then he says, this is insane. And he says, that's why people vote for Trump. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, oh, I know Trump's horrible, but separating sports by sex makes perfect sense. And if you think it doesn't, you can't lead the country. And this is what he said. And then he said that you've been asking all night, why do people vote for Trump? I'm giving you the answer, he said. So this is my point. Like you were saying, again, to support the quote you just gave and to support what we've gone through here, people who would have considered themselves progressive and like Bill Maher are now saying, hold up a minute, what? I'm not on board with that. Doesn't make any sense. And I said, they'll come for him for that. They'll shut him up for that. Maybe try and shut him up for that at some point. And there'll always be something. Always. But anyway, yeah, there you go. We got all political in the end.
Pretty comprehensive.
Very comprehensive. Yeah. So, and then what can people do? So if you don't like the comedy, what can you do? Well, like I said, you can look for ways to get better internally. And you could also just try and avoid comedy. You could try and avoid the internet too. That's a really good solution for anybody who's feeling too sensitive. Don't go online.
To be fair, I was going to say, to be fair, limiting your activity online is probably a good recommendation for anyone, rather.
For sure. And then what about the people who do like good comedy? The people who are just like us, what can we do?
Go to comedy.
Yeah. Keep going to comedy and don't be, don't let people talk you out of it, and don't let people tell you that you shouldn't like certain things or you shouldn't laugh or
just if someone makes a comment questioning your sense of humor or a specific joke, ask that video you sent me earlier, like essentially what that guy does for the people watching, like just honestly ask them and just have an honest conversation with them about like, what is it about this joke and that you find offensive or you think is unethical or something like that, and maybe when they start to explain it, you realize they've just misunderstood or they've just got it wrong. And you can actually just like, because if you have an honest conversation about something like that, I know obviously in not every context you can have a conversation like this, but if you're able to, it will at least show them that you're not coming at it from a position of, you're a monster or something like that. Do you get what I mean?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I suppose also remember that most of this stuff just blows over. It seems like the end of the world sometimes when, maybe someone's coming after you because of a joke you've liked or whatever. But at the end of the day, people get bored and move on. I think a lot, even with like huge accusations and campaigns of someone being offensive, people do tend to move on, especially with
Storm in a teacup.
Huh?
Storm in a teacup.
Right. Yeah. And there's so much going on in the news cycle right now that it's just a matter of time. So, it's not the end of the world, even if that happens. But yeah. All right, sweet. I think I think it was comprehensive. Yeah.
Sick.
You got any more jokes before we
No, I'm not making any more jokes because I feel like I've already dug myself into a hole with those last ones.
What do you mean dug into a hole?
I don't know, figure of speech.
But I mean, like, what? Okay. I won't push you too much more. I feel like we've got the best out of you today.
Yeah.
We've got everything we're going to get out of you today. You're logged out already. You're already off stream in your head.
No, I just anyway, I don't know.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed it or watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're suitably offended. And, little nugget of information for you. If you're in the UK or you want to be in the UK for this, in March, I'm doing another comedy night in Manchester, vegan comedy night. It'll be March the 23rd.
Are the tickets out?
Not yet, no. But just letting everybody know in case they wanted to come. I'll be there. There'll be it's a vegan comedy night, so everyone's going to be vegan. All the comedians will be vegan, and I'm doing some comedy, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of a joke. Yeah, it's going to be really nice, and it'll all be raising money for charity for a sanctuary. So very good reasons to come if you can make it. Lawrence will be there too, right?
Yeah. I'll be there.
There you go. All right. Cheers, mate. Thanks, everybody.
Nice one.
See you in the next one.